Ted, I've got some questions about money, economics and politics, just in a broad sense to start with before getting to specifics. Money has long been synonymous with power in a way, and in volume 2 of your work it's equated with crystallized power.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on this? Why is money associated with power?
Yes. Do you want the technical answer or not technical answer?
Well, both. I was just fascinated about why
Yes.
money is associated with power.
Yes. Russell, the way we look upon life is that when I say we, those of us that have really sort of looked at money and what does money really symbolize? Why we equate it with power, or why for me it makes sense to equate it with power, is because ultimately money is power. For example, if you've got money, as the old expression goes, money talks. So it is power. But for me it also goes a whole lot deeper than just the fact that money talks. For me, in order to make money, or to really not necessarily be exceedingly wealthy in one's life, but just simply to have money, you first of all got to get your own act together. I mean, everybody knows this from, say, being an employee or from running a business. Unless you have your act together, you're not going to keep your job or you're not going to keep your career for very long. But that really implies having a certain level of what one might call personal power. So in other words, knowing for sure what it is that you want out of life, and then setting to, with everything which is available to you, to materialize your dreams and your vision for what it is that you want out of life. Now that all collectively, your vision, as well as how you set about materializing that vision, is what I like to look upon as being personal power. And when you start to materialize your vision, when you start to materialize your wishes and your dreams that you have for yourself, you are in effect, even though you may not be conscious of it, but you're starting to crystallize. You're starting to manifest through the medium of money. You're starting to materialize that vision. Because obviously any vision needs money. It doesn't just need personal power. You can have all the personal power in the world that you like, but unless you can materialize the money, or crystallize, if you like, the money which you need in order to materialize that vision, you are still not going to fulfill your vision. So you're still not going to materialize your dreams. It doesn't matter what those dreams are. The dreams might be to have a very fancy home, might be to have a very fancy car, it might be all manner of things. But without money, you're not going to get very far. And that is essentially, in a nutshell, why we like to look upon, first of all, do you have the personal power which is required? And secondly, if you do have the personal power, can you crystallize that personal power in terms of making money? And hence the expression that power is money, or rather money is power. Vice versa is equally true.
It's equally true. Does it follow on then that if you don't have that money, let's say to materialize a dream,
Yes.
that you lack that personal power?
Not necessarily. To a great extent, that is true. To a great extent, it is true. But you must realize that we also cannot really have gaps in our knowledge within life. So there are many people today, when I say many, enough, not necessarily by the hundreds of thousands, but there are enough people who may have an enormous amount of personal power. And there are well-known historic personages within history where you can see examples of this. You might have a lot of vision, a lot of personal power, but one way or another, it is not your fate in this lifetime to materialize vast sums of money. So invariably, those are the people that ultimately have to, say, look towards a patron or someone who's actually going to believe enough in them to sponsor their work for them. Because even though they have great vision and what they can offer humanity by materializing that vision is of enormous benefit. But still within themselves, they do not have the wherewithal within this lifetime to necessarily materialize money. But generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, I like to say, and this might sound harsh, but I don't intend it harsh, but if you're poor at one level, chances are that you're poor at every level. And really, and having worked with a big cross-section of humanity for most of my lifetime, I've seen this materializing many times. So in other words, when people are really, really struggling to put food on the table, invariably, that is where their greatest lessons in life lie. Mm-hmm. So they're not fated in this lifetime to be great entrepreneurs or great business people. They are really learning the fundamentals of life, what it is to be a provider. So they're not going to, and no matter how much that person tries, they're not going to materialize vast amounts of money in this lifetime. If it's money we're talking about, yes.
Okay. So, what you were saying there about people in the past, let's say if you needed a patron.
Yes.
You did something, but you needed a patron.
Yes.
Could one see that as a form of personal power, where you may not have the money yourself, but
yes.
you have that power or that ability
yes.
to call forth the people who do have the money in order to materialize that dream?
Indeed, indeed. That is true. That is true. But then, once again, one only has to look at history. When there have been truly great souls, and we do not need to mention all their names now, but there have been truly great souls who have had tremendous amounts which they could offer humanity. Yet, still, for whatever reason, they were not allowed to call forth, or, if you like, they didn't have the ability to call forth a patron. Even if they did call forth a patron, it was always a pitiful little of what it was that they truly needed. I suppose what I'm trying to explain to you is there are no hard and fast rules within life when it comes to money. Money is actually a very peculiar and a very ancient concept. And it is so misunderstood today. So people so tend to measure their value according to how much money they have. And I think in a very sort of maybe surreptitious way, I'm trying to guide you into realizing that we can't measure our value according to the amount of money that we have. Because if we were to do that, probably 3/4 of humanity today would feel absolutely useless and would feel, but they have nothing to offer life. And this is just not true. It is just not true.
I was going to ask that, because if one looks at the world today,
yes,
you see vast concentrations of money,
yes,
wealth,
yes,
in a very small segment of humanity, and the vast majority seem not to have a lot of money.
right.
Is there something else behind that, or is it the fact that there's very few people today who have that ability to materialize vast amounts of money?
Again, it's not an easy question to answer the way you're asking that question, because it is undoubtedly true what you say. When we look at the world situation today, we can clearly see that there's vast amounts of wealth which is congregated in one specific area, or more precisely, it's the individual or a group of individuals, relatively small group, that have managed, one way or another, they have managed to materialize vast sums of wealth, which they then hoard for personal gain. But that now is the opposite end of the spectrum of what we've just been talking about. Mm-hmm. Really, everything we've been talking about earlier has to do, when we're talking about personal power, having the ability to be crystallized into power. Everything we're talking about there is the natural flow of that substance of life, which we call money. Now really, money is just a convenient way that man has developed in which to barter. But if we go back to the ancient system of bartering, it might make this whole concept we're talking about much more understandable. It is much more a question of you have something which I need. You have a particular skill, or you have a knowledge or an ability which I can make use of. So I come to you and I say, Russell, I need what it is that you have to offer. What do you want in exchange for me being able to access your skill or your ability, or to make use of what it is that you have to offer? What would you like from me in exchange? That is the old-fashioned principle of bartering. Obviously, as time has evolved and as modern society has taken over more and more, and really by modern society, I'm not talking about society today, I'm going right back in time. But as civilizations grew, so people wanted to formalize their ability to barter, and hence people started to think of the concept of trading in gold and silver, and ultimately, of course, we got to money. Today we've even got paper money, which is really just a symbol of what is supposed to lie behind that paper money. So when we look at the concept of, say, hoarding, which as I spoke about, or the concentration of wealth in certain isolated pockets, what we are really looking at here is the impedance of the free flow of crystallized power, or money if you like. Mm-hmm. If you now take that back to the bartering system, what that quite literally spells out, and this is the shocking truth behind it, is that through whatever process was created, in order for the individual or a small group of individuals to gather or to amass wealth for personal gain, the greater masses surrounding them have had to be impoverished in some way. And the way invariably this has been done, and this is the shocking truth behind it, is that people have been disempowered in terms of the ability to be able to barter. And this is perhaps the greatest evil which has sprung up behind the concept of money as we know it today. Because people are no longer free, or rather they are free to barter, but nobody does it anymore, because people have been led to the belief, rightly or wrongly, that to barter is a symbol of poverty. So unless you can pull out your wallet, pull some notes out, or worse still today, pull out a plastic credit card, you are seen as being a lesser citizen. So people don't barter anymore. They desperately try to earn money so that they can go and buy whatever it is that they need, whether that is food, clothing, or a service, such as hiring a plumber, or going to the dentist, or finding a lawyer. But really, all of this is so artificial. It is so man-made. And really, what I'm working towards trying to explain to you is that it was purposely and willfully set up so that certain individuals who have the know-how can actually amass wealth at the expense of everybody else. So where the world is at today, people cannot think in terms of anything other than money. So unless you have physical money with which to trade or with which to barter, you're a nobody. So people don't even think anymore that, hey, maybe I have a tremendous skill which is wanted by the people, let's say, in my community. Let me sell that skill in terms of bartering. So in other words, I will do for you whatever it is that I have to offer, and in exchange I can see that you are growing some vegetables. So in exchange I would like some vegetables. You, on the other hand, I can see that you have an ability with the law. Now I will come and I will do for you whatever it is that you need me to do, because you also need my skill. But in exchange, I need you to take on this particular situation for me and fight my legal battles for me, because I don't have your knowledge of law. But this is what I mean about disempowered. Mm-hmm. People have today so been pulled into the belief that they can't do this, that nobody does it anymore. So people are desperately looking for employment so that they can earn a little bit of money, so that they can buy with their money what it is that they feel they need. And when they don't have money, they don't even think any further. They simply accept a mindset of poverty. And therefore it's not surprising that they end up living in poverty. And this really is what I meant earlier when I said, in my experience, and working with a big cross-section of humanity, when people are poor up here, they are poor in every respect. And it's not because they need to be, but they have been so mentally conditioned into believing that the world revolves around physical money that they can't think beyond anything else other than I must have physical money. And unless I'm going to steal it, I'm somehow going to earn it. So it becomes such a vicious circle. Because then people also, because they so want to earn it rather than steal it, so they go into huge debts, for argument's sake, to get a university training, in the hope that the university training is going to give them the ability to earn money. But nobody thinks anymore in terms of, but let me use my God-given talents, which I have, in terms of crystallizing the power that I need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So on the surface, it seems like a very useful tool. But there's the trap behind it, of thinking it's the only tool, if we're thinking of money.
Yes.
And you mentioned people getting into debt. If one looks at the world situation today,
Yes.
the monetary system itself seems to be funded by debt.
Yes.
And I was just wondering for myself, what does this say about humanity? Or even if we look at an individual, let's say I was in a lot of debt, what would that say about me if the only way that I had of, let's say, acquiring
Yes.
something,
Yes.
be it a house or a car, and because I lack that ability to materialize it, I need to borrow that money from somebody else in order to acquire it.
Yes.
It seems like we're setting up quite an imbalanced system. What is your view on that?
Russell, once again, this thing of debt or being able to borrow money is again a huge trap devised by very unscrupulous beings or very unscrupulous people who are really out to feather their nests. Because anybody knows that when you borrow money, it makes somebody else, the person who's lending you the money, very rich, and it makes you very poor. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly the same principle I was talking about just now. There are very clever people in this world who know how to amass huge amounts of wealth for themselves personally at the expense of the person who's in a desperate position, an already desperate position. So really, when I say unscrupulous, these are people that think nothing of making the desperate situation of desperate people even more desperate. So they'll say to you, oh, Russell, but you want that nice home, or you want that nice car, or worse still, you know, if you're really going to be a good father, I know that you need the money to educate your children at university, so I will lend you. I will graciously lend you the money. But yet deep down inside, those people know that they are ripping you off. Because it's not out of a kindness of their heart that they're lending you that money. They are lending you that money so that they can milk you for every last possible cent. And this is the trap that the whole of humanity has been conditioned into falling into. So the whole monetary system, as it's based in the world today, is the rich raping the poor. And I might sound very pedantic when I say that, but really, I think the time has come where we actually need to look at the world situation in terms of money, and we need to decide whether we're going to call a spade a shovel or not. Because really, where the whole monetary system is at today is a question of disempowering people more and more, so that the rich can get richer and the poorer can feel worse and worse about themselves, because by now they feel poor in every possible respect. And that, of course, is exactly where, let's call it, the moneylenders of this world want humanity. Because the worse you feel about yourself, the less you are going to try and help yourself. And therefore, when yet another moneylender comes along and says, "Oh, you poor thing, I'm going to help you out. I will lend you the money," of course you just go with it, because you feel you have no choice other than to go with it. Therefore, I feel if humanity really wanted to be of service to itself, it will actually start saying no to debt. No, I don't want it. I'll find my own way, thank you very much.
Okay, because that was was going to be my next question. For the individuals out there who have seen the system for what it is, and,
yes,
and who don't want to take on debt, and I know this is not an easy question, it might require several answers over time. But is it possible in a nutshell to offer any kind of advice for those people who say, look, I would love to get out of this system? What is the best way in which one can take small practical steps to remove yourself from that system?
Yes. Russell, on the one hand, it's not a difficult question to answer, and I'll qualify that in a minute. On the other hand, it is an exceedingly difficult question to answer, and I'd like to qualify that statement first before I get back to the first one. It is so difficult to answer because humanity today has become so caught up in the concept of having to have physical money. And that is, as I said earlier, a mindset. And it's not easy to change a mindset. It's not easy to change it in someone else, and it's not easy to change within oneself. So if you have been conditioned, ever since you are a small child, to grow up with the idea that money is the beginning and end of all, it's very hard to break that mindset. Why I said just now it's not actually a difficult question to answer is it is perfectly possible, if you don't want to buy into where the monetary systems in today's world is at, it's perfectly possible to do so. But that entails changing your mindset from being an individual that should be totally self-sufficient, totally independent, and therefore by implication isolated from the world around you, to a new mindset wherein you see yourself as being one of, let us say, a community, and using whatever personal power you have to start interacting with the members of your community in a meaningful and in a purposeful way, by talking to them, interacting with them on a daily basis, sharing your views with them, sharing your fears with them, your doubts, your concerns. Because you'll find that once you begin to do that, you are not alone. Other people have the same fears, the same doubts, the same insecurities. Once you've established that much of a relationship, and people are beginning to do it in various parts of the world, they start to form a very real community, excuse me, wherein they're doing exactly, or beginning to do exactly what I spoke about earlier, going back to the ancient system of bartering. So maybe you're a plumber in my community, and let's say I'm an electrician. So because we belong to the same community, I need some plumbing work done, and you need some electrical work done, and we simply do each other the favor. It's a swap, a direct swap. No money exchanges hands. Neither you nor I need to get into debt, but we work together in materializing what it is that both you want as well as what I want. So really, at the end of the day, The only real cost involved in something like that is now not the so-called service, and that word has become such a bad word in today's society, but it is literally only the raw materials which are needed.